As the Seokjin case involving BTS's Jungkook moved forward in a Seoul courtroom, the world watched in tense silence. For the first time, Jungkook appeared before legal authorities to recount the harrowing moment a stalker breached the privacy of his home. Dressed in a formal black suit, his hands trembled slightly as he stepped up to the witness stand. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the weight of what happened inside that room quickly reached the public. Witnesses in the courtroom described an emotionally charged moment when Jungkook, while recalling the night the Seokjin attempted to enter his apartment just days after his military discharge, paused for several minutes, visibly overwhelmed. The silence in the room was deafening, until Jin, seated beside him as a guardian and brother figure, leaned forward and held his hand. Then, Jin softly whispered a single word that was later confirmed by court observers and HYB staff: "Breathe." That one word, spoken with the calm authority of someone who knows exactly what his younger brother needs, was enough to steady Jungkook. And within hours, the word trended worldwide. Fans around the globe flooded social media with the hashtag #BreatheJK, turning a moment of vulnerability into a global wave of support. This courtroom scene didn't just symbolize the trauma K-pop idols endure behind the curtain of fame. It revealed something deeper. How, even in the darkest moments, BTS members remain each other's light. Jin didn't give a speech, nor did he perform. He simply sat beside Jungkook, held his hand, and spoke the only word that mattered. And somehow, that was more powerful than any stage performance they've ever done. The scene became an instant legend, not only within ARMY circles, but across the Korean entertainment industry. News anchors described the interaction as one of the most humanizing and heartbreaking moments in celebrity history. Legal experts noted how rare it is for an idol of Jungkook's caliber to testify in person, and even rarer for such a vulnerable moment to slip into the public narrative. Yet, it did, and perhaps that was what made it unforgettable. Outside the courthouse, fans gathered not in frenzy, but in silence. Many held placards that simply read "Breathe," written in purple ink, a tribute not just to Jungkook, but to the invisible wounds he had been carrying for years. For once, the noise of fame was replaced with quiet solidarity. Later that day, Jin posted a single photo on Weverse, a black and white image of two hands intertwined. The caption? "I'll always be beside you. Jin." That post garnered over 9 million likes in under 3 hours and sparked emotional responses from fans who saw it not just as brotherly love, but as a vow of protection. Inside HYB, insiders claimed this courtroom experience had shaken the company to its core. Bang Si-hyuk reportedly held an emergency roundtable meeting, ordering a complete overhaul of all artist privacy protocols and security enforcement. But for Jin and Jungkook, no policy could undo the emotional damage. Healing, for them, would not come from press statements, but from moments like these, raw, quiet, and real. The incident also reignited discussions about Seokjin culture, media boundaries, and the dangers of obsessive fan behavior. Even lawmakers began pushing for legislation nicknamed Jungkook's Law that would offer stronger legal protection for celebrities and harsher penalties for stalking-related crimes. As for Jungkook, he left the courthouse not with his head held high, but with Jin's hand still gripping his. And somehow, that was more powerful than any victory. Because in a world that constantly demands perfection, breathe became the most revolutionary word of all. Days after the court appearance, the image of Jungkook and Jin holding hands became iconic, circulating not only among armies but also being featured on national TV, news sites, and even international headlines. Jungkook's emotional breakdown was no longer seen as a moment of weakness, but as a powerful symbol of humanity in the glittering yet unforgiving world of K-pop. Several psychology experts were invited on Korean talk shows to analyze the deeper implications of the event. One therapist stated, "What Jin did was an act of emotional grounding. In trauma response, even a single word from someone trusted can stabilize a collapsing world." That insight resonated with fans who had seen Jungkook as invincible for so long, but now saw him as more relatable, more real. A letter written by a young fan from Busan went viral. In it, she wrote, Jungkook, when you cried, I realized I didn't have to be strong all the time either. Thank you for showing us it's okay to not be okay. The letter was eventually shared by Jungkook himself on Weverse with a short reply. Thank you for letting me breathe too. That post alone sparked over 800,000 comments in 24 hours. Meanwhile, Jin was asked during a behind-the-scenes video interview why he chose to accompany Jungkook to court rather than allow company representatives to handle it alone. His answer was simple but striking. Because if it were me, I'd want someone I trust to be beside me. That's what hyungs are for. Behind the cameras and applause, BTS has always been a story of brotherhood. But in this case, it was more than music or fame. It was about survival, about standing beside someone when the world is watching you fall. Jin didn't need to wear a costume or perform a song. He only needed to be present. And he was. Fully. As the investigation into Seokjin culture deepened, new protective legislation began to form, all tracing back to this courtroom event. Jin and Jungkook had unknowingly sparked a movement, one built not on anger but on empathy. In the end, breathe became more than just a whispered word in a courtroom. It became a message to a generation that is constantly overwhelmed, constantly performing. Jin's word reminded us all that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply to pause and let yourself breathe. Not long after the courtroom moment went viral, HYB released an official statement confirming that legal proceedings against the Seokjin individual would continue, with full support from the company and its legal team. But to many fans, the legal statement was just a formality. The real story was the silent, powerful display of emotional solidarity between Jin and Jungkook. International media began dubbing the moment "the hand that held BTS," a symbolic title reflecting how Jin's quiet strength carried Jungkook through one of the most difficult public moments of his life. Magazine covers across South Korea and Japan even featured artistic renditions of that hand-holding moment, and fan art flooded the internet. One painting in particular, titled "Breathe With Me," showed a faceless Jungkook gripping Jin's hand, surrounded by shadows labeled fame, fear, obsession, and loneliness. The only light source in the image came from their joined hands. Meanwhile, in a rare move, Bang Si-hyuk personally addressed the issue during a live industry conference, stating, "What happened to Jungkook is not just a company matter. It's a human matter. And as a company that represents artists, we must protect them, not just in contracts, but in real life." The crowd applauded, but the impact was deeper than just words. It was now an industry reckoning, and private. Sources close to BTS revealed that the entire group came together after the court hearing in a private dinner. The mood was heavy but healing. RM reportedly said during a toast, "This moment reminded me why we started this together. Not for applause, but for each other." Even members like Suga and V, who often keep their emotions guarded, were seen holding back tears as they embraced Jungkook and Jin that night. What followed was a subtle but undeniable shift in BTS's public messaging. Social media posts became more intentional, more grounded. Jungkook stopped hiding his emotions during lives, occasionally opening up about anxiety and pressure. Jin, too, began to speak more openly about the dangers of fan obsession, using his voice not to scold, but to educate. Fans across the world launched the hashtag #ProtectIdols movement, calling for global conversations about ethical fan behavior. Korean universities began offering seminars on parasocial relationships, using the BTS Seokjin incident as a case study in modern celebrity trauma. And yet, despite all this noise, the memory most fans hold onto is still that single moment in court. And oh, cameras. Noise clip. Just a brother holding another's hand in silence and whispering, "Breathe." That single syllable carried more than air. It carried the weight of protection, of love, and of a promise. No matter how terrifying the world becomes, you will never face it alone. In the weeks that followed, something extraordinary happened. Rather than fading into the noise of the internet like most viral moments, the courtroom scene between Jin and Jungkook became a cultural landmark. University lecturers in Seoul began using the footage, leaked by a court artist's sketch and attendee testimony, in ethics classes about fame and emotional vulnerability. A professor at Yonsei University stated, This is the first time a moment between idols is being discussed in the same breath as historical figures of empathy. Meanwhile, mental health organizations across Asia saw a surge in inquiries, particularly from young adults. The Korea Mental Health Foundation cited the Breathe incident as a pivotal reason for a spike in outreach from fans who had long buried their anxiety and stress under the weight of perfection. One fan wrote in an open letter posted to Naver, "When Jungkook cried, I let myself cry too. And when Jin held his hand, I held my own." That letter was later turned into a short film by an independent studio in Busan. Jungkook, recovering quietly in the background, was said to be focusing on self-care. According to HYB insiders, he's been attending private therapy sessions, spending quiet evenings with family, and writing music again. Not for a comeback, but for healing. Jin remains close by, often seen leaving the same security entrance at the HYB building at late hours, always with a hoodie pulled over his face to avoid attention. A staff member quietly said, "He's not doing this for the media. He's doing this because he promised." Then, on July 1st, 2025, just 2 weeks after the courtroom event, Jungkook uploaded a surprise Weverse post. It wasn't a song or a selfie or an update. It was a voice recording. "I am the quiet clip." Jungkook's voice trembled as he said, "To anyone who's ever felt unsafe, exposed, or scared, I understand now in ways I didn't before. Thank you for standing by me. And Hyung, thank you for telling me to breathe when I forgot how. I won't forget." The voice note ended with a soft laugh, and then silence. Fans called it the most honest recording of his career. Jin reposted the audio with a caption, "Always beside you. Let's keep breathing together." The world responded not with hashtags this time, but with stillness. For once, the internet slowed down to feel something real. The case against the Seokjin fan is still ongoing. Legal teams continue to build a case, and the Korean government has promised new reforms that will protect artists and other public figures from obsessive stalking behaviors. But even if justice is delayed, something has already changed forever. Jungkook is no longer just the golden magne, the superstar, the legend. He's a young man who cried in court. He's a brother who held someone's hand. He's a voice that taught millions it's okay to stop performing and just breathe. And Jin, he reminded the world of something even more powerful than fame. The quiet strength of being there when someone needs you most. And oh music, and oh lights, just a hand and a whisper, breathe.